Star Trek Discovery. What in the world happened? In the 1990s, Star Trek Deep Space Nine came out. Some loved the ideal of the first African American in charge. Others complained that it was racist or at least a slap in the face because of stereotypes like a character being the only parent to a child, placed in charge of a space station, and worse, one that was actually a used space station that was torn apart, not a shiny new ship. And in one case, the whole show was referred to as like a space ghetto. Yet by the end, they saw a damaged character rise high and along the way became more interesting because of his struggles. I will admit the whole religion aspect of the show left me cold, mostly because at the time I was surrounded by self-righteous people who spent too much time pushing religion in my face. Yet, the character Ben Sisko was great, and in the end, he helped to bridge a gap between a post-occupied planet and the Federation that sounds like a great role model to me. Now, fast forward to 2017 in Star Trek Discovery. Rainsford, who is played by Sonequa Martin Green. This was to be the SJW moment to shine and portray a strong African American character in a lead role. They gave her all the advantages that many liberals say if only African Americans were not denied due to systemic racism, you would not see African Americans in such sore straits today. She was raised off-world and had adoptive parents who was supportive of her. She was separated from the evil spawned in Earth by racism. Amazingly enough, the adopted father or the guardian was far more accepting of this fully emotional child than he was toward his own biological child, which, by the way, actually happens to be Spock from the original series. So I have to ask, what happened? From the first episode, she was emotional, having picked up none of the Vulcan ability of self-control. Forget the whole disrespect to Star Trek fans. I've long since given up on seeing a fan show from Hollywood not leaving me feeling more insulted than actually enjoying. No, what I mean is, she has learned no ability as an adult under Vulcans to be polite to others. She makes one mistake after another, leading her to attack even her captain she is supposed to admire, because the captain is unwilling to attack the Klingons, who she is so willfully sure must be attacked. That ends up putting her in confinement. And that seems even more odd, since one of the complaints against Deep Space Nine was the stereotypes. This seems to be a glaring stereotype that a black person ends up in jail. Does that not sound like a stereotype to you? Now, don't get me wrong. I have no doubt that no matter skin color, gender, or culture, we are all equal. But this is an ideal society, a TV show not bound by reality, and they choose to have the star come across as an emotional basket case that came from a stable, loving family. It seems to be the exact opposite of what many leaders of the African Americans claim would happen if race didn't get the way of success. Also understand, I don't blame the star. If you are given a bad script, it is hardly the fault of the actor if she is unable to make it work. I personally think the problem is that the show's creator didn't have the faintest idea of Star Trek as to why it survives with fans. In arrogance, they just used the name Star Trek and ignored trying to understand the universe. But I am truly baffled that they chose to give their character all the advantages, yet failed to understand. To viewers, having all her advantages was less prepared than, say, Ben Sisko of Deep Space Nine. How in today's background of hypersensitivity to race issues could they have totally overlooked that by giving her all these advantages when they knew she was to have all these mistakes couldn't help but make the character less sympathetic? I find it ironic, not that they were tone deaf to the fans of Star Trek, but even more tone deaf to today's societal issues of race than even back in the 1990s. Honestly, I'd even go back to the 1960s. Look at the communications officer, or her, on the original Star Trek, who was both a strong willed woman and treated as an equal, working together to solve problems, not going around throwing fits or attacking officers that she disagreed with. How in today's 2017 could they have been so clueless?